impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired.
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to another episode of Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, here's a look at the latest headlines. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk and President Andrzej Duda in Warsaw, marking the final day of his two-day visit. Prime Minister Modi will also visit Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv, tomorrow. Vladimir Putin hosts China's number 2 in command, Premier Li Qiang, in Moscow. Russia and China sign a number of bilateral agreements, including a joint investment cooperation plan. The United Arab Emirates becomes the second nation to accept credentials of Taliban's ambassador to the oil-rich Gulf state. Earlier this year, China became the first nation to accept an ambassador from the Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. The Democratic Republic of Congo reports over 1,000 mpox cases this week as the Central African nation urges faster deliveries of vaccines from the World Health Organization. And El Salvador trains over 80,000 government officials to make them more familiar with Bitcoin technology. San Salvador says the officials underwent 160 hours of training and were given certificates in Bitcoin administration after passing 7 module exams. We begin in the United States. Former President Donald Trump held his first outdoor rally after the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania just last month. Joined by his running mate J.D. Vance, Donald Trump rallied in the key battleground state of North Carolina, where the Republicans are hoping for a repeat of their 2020 election victory. Speaking from behind bulletproof glass, Donald Trump verbally attacked the Biden administration and Democrats after reporting inflated employment numbers.
Harris-Biden administration has been caught fraudulently manipulating job statistics to hide the true extent of the economic ruin that they've inflicted on America. The new data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that the administration padded the numbers with an extra, listen to this one, 818,000 jobs that don't exist. So they said they existed, and they never did exist. They built them up so that they could say what a wonderful job they're doing. No, we've never had numbers like this. They don't exist.
The ex-president then called out President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama, accusing them of personal attacks on him during their keynote addresses at the Democratic National Convention here on Wednesday.
Did you see Barack Hussein Obama last night? Take little shots. He was taking shots at your president. And so was Michelle. You know, they always say, sure, please stick to policy. Don't get personal. And yet they're getting personal all night long, these people. Do I still have to stick to policy?
Now, of course, this is rich considering Donald Trump himself is responsible for the very ugly birther movement where he attacked the nation's first black president, accusing him of not being a U.S. citizen, and other attacks that many considered racist. And Trump is now using the very same playbook as he questions the racial identity of Vice President Kamala Harris as she continues her quest to defeat him at the ballot box in November. Meanwhile, her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, accepted the Democratic vice presidential nomination on Wednesday night. Democrats clearly are riding a wave of energy and fresh enthusiasm, which can be seen all throughout this convention. In fact, since announcing her candidacy and securing endorsements from the entire party just weeks ago, the vice president has led Donald Trump in a majority of the opinion polls. In fact, several polls, including Morning Consult, YouGov, ActiVote, Ipsos, and Quantos, all show Harris holding an average lead of 3 percentage points. The Harris waltz momentum is so striking that now they've closed the gap in traditional red states such as North Carolina and even Florida. In fact, in the last week, the only poll that showed Donald Trump winning was the one conducted by Elon Musk on his social media platform X, where over 3 million users voted and had the Republicans securing over 73% of the opinion, which clearly can't be taken serious. In fact, even Rasmussen, a traditionally right-leaning poll, shows Harris leading Trump. Now, opinion polls have been less reliable in the era of Trump. In fact, more so during the midterm elections of 2022, when just about every poll predicted a red wave of Republicans sweeping Democrats that never came to fruition. However, they do highlight the mood of the nation. And with November 5th just around the corner, what we do know for certain is that since Harris has become the Democratic nominee, the electorate has become far more engaged and excited about this year's election. And staying in the United States, more than 2,000 pro-Palestine protesters marched around the Democratic National Convention's arena in Chicago, demanding an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The demonstrators rallied to the Israeli consulate in the Windy City. And what started out as a peaceful protest quickly turned violent as demonstrators clashed with police officers right outside the Israeli consulate. Chicago police detained at least 56 people as the remaining protesters camped outside the consulate chanting slogans like "Free, Free Palestine." The demonstrators urged the Biden administration to place an arms embargo on Israel over its war in Gaza, which has killed thousands of civilians.
Our message is to tell the Democratic Party, to tell the DNC, not in our name, not with our tax dollars, not with U.S.-made weapons. Enough is enough. An arms embargo must be imposed against the apartheid regime of Israel.
Meanwhile, angry protesters who claim to be Democrat supporters threatened that they would not vote for the party if the Biden administration fails to deliver on securing a ceasefire in Gaza.
We're here to send a message to the DNC because Chicago actually has one of the largest Palestinian communities in the entire nation. We literally have a place on Google called Little Palestine, and the Democratic Party will not get our vote if the genocide in Gaza doesn't end immediately. Our vote matters, and we know that.
Now, despite the clashes, the turnout at the rally was one of the largest among pro-Palestine protests this week. At least 200 social service groups orchestrated the rally and drew one of the largest gatherings of Palestinian American families. The greater Chicago area remains one of the largest populations of Palestinians outside Gaza. Meanwhile, parents of Israeli American hostages also spoke at the Democratic convention and urged the Biden administration to secure the release of captives still being held by Hamas.
We want our son and another 108 hostages to come home. We need these leaders to figure out the mechanism to make it happen. We keep hearing we're close, and then something falls apart. We need to get it so that these leaders understand that these are real people, real lives across the region who are impacted by this situation, and they need to figure out the details so that we could bring these people home and move the region forward.
With the pro-Palestinian protesters demanding a ceasefire and Israel families demanding a hostage release, President Joe Biden and his team are staring at a dilemma on how to best resolve tensions at home and in the Middle East. And staying with the war in Gaza, President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a phone call on Wednesday discussing the ongoing efforts to secure a ceasefire and a hostage release deal in Gaza. Along with U.S. President, Vice President Kamala Harris was also on the call. Now, according to a White House statement, President Biden emphasized the urgency of finalizing the ceasefire and hostage release agreement. He even highlighted the upcoming talks in Cairo as crucial to overcoming any remaining obstacles. A major sticking point in the negotiations is the future of the Philadelphia corridor, a key 8.7-mile strip of land along the Gaza-Egypt border. An Israeli broadcaster reported that Israel's withdrawal from this area was part of the proposed agreement. However, Netanyahu's office quickly denied any plans to leave the corridor, asserting that Israel would ensure its objectives, including securing the southern border to prevent future threats from Gaza.
We thwarted Hamas leader Mohammed Deif and other commanders as well. We captured the Philadelphia Road, we captured the Rafah crossing. With all our strength, we are dismantling the Hamas regime and eliminating their military capability, and this is progressing.
Now, this denial, however, seems to contradict comments made by Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who earlier stated that Israel had agreed to a bridging proposal that included specific troop withdrawals.
Israel has now accepted that proposal. I heard that directly from Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday. And we hope and expect that Hamas will do the same. And over the coming days, we are going to do everything possible to, one, get Hamas on board with the bridging proposal, and then to make sure that both parties work on and agree to necessary details of implementation that would allow everything to go forward.
Now, as negotiations remain complicated, Washington has increased the presence of its forces in the region in preparation for any escalation. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group arrived in the Middle East on Wednesday, reinforcing America's military presence amid concerns over a potential Iranian attack. The USS Abraham Lincoln joins the USS Theodore Roosevelt, which will remain in the area for a few more days before returning home. Meanwhile, CIA Director William Burns and other senior U.S. negotiators are expected to be in Cairo for further high-level talks this weekend. Director Burns, along with his counterparts from Qatar and Egypt, hope to bridge the gaps and achieve a lasting ceasefire in Gaza. And now moving to Canada, where the economy is facing a serious threat. The country's two largest rail companies have locked out nearly 9,000 workers after negotiations over scheduling practices and working conditions failed to materialize. This unprecedented move risks disrupting supply chains that transport over $750,000 worth of goods daily, potentially bringing critical sectors to a costly standstill. Here's our report with more.
Canada is on the brink of an unprecedented crisis as its two largest rail companies, Canadian National Rail and Canadian Pacific Kansas City, have locked out nearly 9,000 workers. This drastic move, which began Thursday morning, follows failed negotiations between the companies and the Teamsters Union, pushing the country towards a nationwide rail stoppage that threatens to grind key sectors of the economy to a halt. The implications of this lockout are staggering. Canada relies heavily on its rail network to transport goods, with over $736,000 worth of products moved every day across the country and into the United States. Thus, the impact on supply chains could be catastrophic, with industries from agriculture to mining now at risk. Union Pacific, the number 2 U.S. railroad operator, warns that this stoppage would have devastating consequences for the economies of the two countries. And ratings agency Moody's estimates that the stoppage could cost over $250 million per day. Negotiations between the rail companies and the Teamsters Union, primarily over issues like shift scheduling, fatigue provisions and wages, have reached a deadlock. The workers argue that their conditions have worsened, while both the rail companies claim their offers are competitive and prioritize safety. Canada's Federal Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon has met with both parties, urging a resolution but stopping short of enforcing binding arbitration. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has also called on both sides to reach an agreement, emphasizing the stakes for millions of Canadians who rely on the rail network for their livelihoods.
My message is very straightforward. It is in the best interest of both sides to continue doing the hard work at the table to find a negotiated resolution.
But the stakes extend beyond Canada's borders. With Canada exporting 75% of its goods to the United States, the lockout could ripple through North American supply chains. In 2023, the United States exported $28.3 billion of agricultural products to Canada, making it the third largest destination for U.S. agricultural exports behind China and Mexico. Ethanol, potash, corn, cereals, food grains, cooking oils and meat are among the agricultural products traded between the two nations. Industry and trade organizations have sounded the alarm, warning of the severe consequences if the lockout continues. Truckers say they are facing a surge in demand and that road freight rates are rising for shippers in Canada. However, industry insiders say that while the trucking sector can handle some of the demand, it cannot replace rail distribution. In a country that has never faced a simultaneous rail stoppage at this scale, the coming days will be crucial. Will the two sides find common ground, or will Canada face a prolonged and painful disruption to its economy?
And finally, despite being at the forefront of green initiatives, Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol will be flying almost 1,000 miles to work every other day in a private jet from Newport Beach, California to Seattle, Washington. His upcoming trips will leave an unimaginable trail of carbon emissions. And this move has sparked a public backlash, with many criticizing the company for banning plastic straws but endorsing these carbon-intensive executive perks. Our final story gets you the details on the brewing trouble facing Starbucks.
The world seems to have collectively realized that climate change is no laughing matter. Individuals and corporations alike are racing to outdo each other in their efforts to secure a greener future for the next generation. Or at least, that's the narrative they are selling. Everyone's making grand promises to cut carbon footprints and adopt eco-friendly practices. But is any of it real? Take Starbucks, for example, the coffee titan that's supposedly leading the charge in green initiatives. They are doing everything from cutting down greenhouse gas emissions in production to swapping out plastic for paper cups. It looks like they're ticking all the right boxes. But recently, Starbucks found itself under the harsh glare of public scrutiny for a move that seems to fly in the face of its green image. The company recently named Brian Niccol as its new CEO, in a hope that he will brew up better business. But his environmental impact began soaring on day one. Quite literally. According to reports, Niccol will commute to his new office in Washington State's Seattle City all the way from Newport Beach in California on a private jet. That's a round-trip distance of about 990 miles or 1,600 kilometers every day. If you're having trouble connecting the dots, let us help. While Starbucks preaches sustainability, its new CEO will be pumping out carbon emissions at a rate that even the most avid polluter would envy. Office perks indeed. It didn't take long for people to notice the hypocrisy. Starbucks, which recently banned plastic straws to save the turtles, now seems okay with torching the sky with jet fuel. Social media did not hold back. One user dubbed it the super commute. Another quipped that Niccol's lifestyle would crush the environment. Someone else went straight for the jugular, calling Starbucks a bunch of performative hypocrites. Another skeptic declared that Starbucks can never convince anyone of its environmental commitment after this. Let's not forget, Niccol's getting paid handsomely for his efforts, a whopping $1.6 million annually, with a bonus potential of up to $7.2 million. And if part of the deal includes a daily jet ride, who's complaining? Certainly not Niccol. After all, this is not his first rodeo. When he became Chipotle's CEO in 2018, he managed a similar perk back then. The company's headquarters moved from Colorado to California just months after he took over. Coincidence? Hardly. In case you're wondering, the aviation industry accounts for 2.5% of global carbon dioxide emissions. Add private jet lifestyle to the mix and the numbers soar. Celebrities alone emitted over 3,300 tons of carbon dioxide from their private jet usage in 2022. Taylor Swift, who's busy breaking records and hearts, also broke the planet a little, with her two jets emitting 1,200 tons of carbon dioxide in 2023. According to reports, in 2022, Japper Jay-Z's 136 flights emitted more than 6,900 tons of carbon dioxide. Kim Kardashian emitted more than 4,200 tons of carbon emissions with 57 flights. Then there is Oprah Winfrey, who has emitted more than 3,400 tons of carbon dioxide from a total of 68 flights. They all contribute their fair share to global warming with their sky-high carbon footprints. So where exactly is this greenwashed world of ours heading? Are we really on the path to a sustainable future, or are we just jet-setting towards environmental oblivion? Starbucks might want to rethink whether its next great initiative should involve less paper cups and more common sense.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired.
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on First Post America.
Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual. My name is Utsav